Okay, so I'm going to ask you to cast your minds back to the land before time, 2019. Um, almost a year ago when we were thinking about 2020 and what we wanted to achieve, what we were trying to build towards, and just get a sense of what was happening a year ago. What were your ambitions for this year before the improbable unfolded? And then we can talk about maybe how things might have changed.
For me, this was, let's say this time last year, I had literally opened my shop 2 months ago. I opened last year, October. So I was like, okay, get through Christmas, New Year's going to be really busy. And then next year, because Pop's open, it thrives in the summer. So I just expected to build this customer base slowly through the spring. And figured that by this time next year, the place would be kicking. I'd have a big team of staff. I probably wouldn't be there as much because I could take a step back. Doesn't look like that. Close, but not quite like that.
For me, this time last year was particularly interesting because I wasn't even sure whether or not I'll be continuing at Peckham Levels, because initially I was taken on as a creator in residence, which means basically I had a supported space, so I had subsidized rent. So this time last year I was told that supported subsidized space was coming to an end, or support was coming to an end. So I was at the time trying to figure out ways I can make more of an income to continue on at Peckham Levels. So I was kind of, I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to carry on my business, to be honest, at that time. So yeah, it was a bit weird, but yeah. So yeah, it was a very turbulent time at that time, like this time last year, to be honest, even before everything went crazy. So yeah.
So it sounds like you were both at different transition points, but really looking at what's the next stage of what you've been doing and trying to take that upper level, and that being predicated on having some sort of a space to work from and build from. And then obviously I think it was March when we had to take the decision to shut everything down. And obviously from our perspective, we had to figure out how to do that. That wasn't something we had thought about before. And now this whole year seems to have just flown by, even though it's been start and interruptions. And I think the first follow-up question I want to ask you, first of all, is like, how are you doing now? Just because obviously it's been a lot. I just want to kind of get a sort of temperature check from how you're feeling. And then maybe we can start to talk about, okay, well, how have we practically dealt with this year? How have you adapted?
I will say, firstly, I'm grateful to still be able to keep going. I think, fortunately, being in a space like part, or just a part of Makeshift, you're not on the high street. You're not just with like a rogue landlord who still wants their rent at full whack or whatever. So fortunately, we've had support in that sense. So that has really made the pandemic in general easier to deal with. However, I do feel like now, because we were speaking about the pandemic since this time last year, so it really has been a full year in our kind of consciousness. I do think I'm kind of exhausted in that sense because of the stopping and starting, because even though we are able to still operate, it does affect your flow, it affects your revenue, and then it doesn't allow you to really make decisions past like the next week, because you just don't know what your business is going to look like. So I think in that sense, I'm feeling like I'm ready to wrap up the year and then kind of plan next year.
Yeah, me too. I am too grateful to still be going, basically, still have my business and to, still continue to trade. So yeah, I'm just thankful I'm in a position to do that. I would say I'm one of the lucky ones because this whole period has kind of presented new opportunities for me. So there's just new avenues that have just opened up because of this. So yeah, it's kind of been, I hesitate, I speak about this all the time. I say it's kind of a blessing that all this has happened in some respects, because it's given me some time to actually reflect on my own business and what I should be doing as well. And that's been good because I need to do that anyway. Because like I said before, I was at a stage where I wasn't sure where I was going to go. So it just gave me that time to actually sit down and actually think, okay, what should I be doing? What do I need to do? You know, how should I go forward from here? So yeah, it was really, it was important from that perspective as well, just to be able to reflect. But like I said, it's opened a lot more opportunities for me as well. So, you know, I'm one of the lucky ones, to be honest. So, you know, at the moment things are going better than they ever have been. So it's a weird thing to say, but yeah. So yeah, that's
To
me.
add to that as well, actually, I do feel like because we were forced to stop as well, it really made everyone like have to take the time to whatever it is that you weren't able to do before. Because when you do work for yourself, like you're just on all the time. And I think that really made just any business person just take a step back and really start to look at everything full picture. And it also depended on how you saw this thing, because it did create a lot of opportunity that probably wouldn't have been there having this had not happened.
Feels to me like there's two things here. There's the strategic sort of stepping back, and then there's the very practical, like business interruption and how you had to change your business.
Yeah.
Maybe we start on that strategic note, because you're right, we were all forced to pause, to explore other avenues, and to really understand our value proposition as organizations and businesses and individuals. So can I ask you to kind of just delve into that a little bit more in terms of how your approach might have changed and kind of what you learned from that pulling back and that enforced stopping, which we often don't do when we're trying to build things?
Well, for me, it was just, it was important for me to realize what I needed to focus on. So there are certain parts of my business which, you know, I was spending time on, but it wasn't really, you know, giving me anything back. So there were certain things I need to focus on more. So a lot of the stuff I do was focused on, you know, I do work with theatre companies, cheerleading teams, and stuff like that. And that's kind of the stuff I really need to focus on, because that was bringing in the most revenue. There's other bits and pieces like the design work. The thing about the design work is good, but it takes so much time, and most of my time is taken up printing. So, but again, that was bringing in most of the revenue. So I learned I need to focus on printing. But obviously during the pandemic, I couldn't really do anything, because obviously theatre schools stopped running, cheerleading teams, they weren't doing anything. So when their businesses stopped, my business stopped, basically. So I couldn't really do anything anyway. Okay, I said to myself, when we come out of this, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to focus on. I need to concentrate on and building up my client base, you know. So yeah, from that point of view, yeah, it's just kind of like focus my mind on what I need to do in order to bring in more income to the business. So yeah.
Was that sort of a survival reaction? Was that about, okay, where's, you know?
Yeah, no, it was. Because at the time, like I said, I was told I wouldn't be getting the subsidized rent, so I need to bring in more income to keep the business going anyway, like to keep my studio, to keep things going. So yeah, it was more survival than anything else, but I needed to do it anyway, to be honest, because I think I was kind of like just cruising, you know, I was just making enough money just to pay my rent and to, you know, to get by. I wasn't really focused on how to build my business. And I think that period kind of forced me to do that. But you need to keep building. You need to focus on building your business, you know? So yeah, it was about survival. But yeah, I realize now is that you need to focus on continually trying to build your business and make it bigger and make it better. That's what you need to focus on.
Thank you, Wayne. And Keisha, can I put that over to you? That like, how did your strategy change? What did that thinking time enable you to develop?
Well, I guess for hospitality, obviously, same thing. No shop front anymore, and we didn't know how long that was going to be in March. So the immediate one was, how am I going to just reach the same customers in a different way? So I just started with my friend doing cooking at home and just delivering, kind of like our own delivery, because I wasn't on Deliveroo at the time. And yeah, just did it like that, really ad hoc. And at the same time, that also allowed me to build my social presence and connect with customers differently. So because I had more time, I was cooking at home and sharing the content and recipes and whatnot. And how I knew that really worked and paid off is because then when we reopened in summer and people are booking more, as well as because of the BLM stuff I noticed. But I would say, oh, you know, where did you hear about us? And they were like, oh, I saw your doubles recipe on Instagram. I was like, oh, okay. So that way I was able to reach different people and connect with them differently, because they may not come to pot, but they are on Instagram or their friend sent them a video or whatever. So it was kind of like it went full circle organically.
Can I just say also, I think that period also made me realize how important your online presence is. You know,
Yeah.
you really need to, you know, focus on that and get your name out there and tell as many people about your business as possible. And social media is the way to go, basically. You know, I've got so much work just through Instagram, posting something on Instagram. You say, oh, where did you get that? Can I get one, sort of thing? And yeah, it's very, very important. You really need to focus on that.
Definitely. Because really, if you had a physical space like both of us had, once your door shut, you essentially didn't exist, because
Right.
you didn't have the opportunity for someone just to walk in. Like, you really had to have presence, like online sort of thing. So that's why that almost saved me for that time, I will say.
Yeah.
I asked, I think you made a point about you know, that direct connection with customers, be it through Instagram or just getting it out there yourself. Do you feel like this year has changed the sort of psychology of your customers? Do they, because there's part of me which is thinking people want more authentic experiences. You know, they have seen the sort of, this is going to sound overblown, but like, you know, the collapse of the sort of high street or a lot of ways of thinking. And so people like yourselves who can carry that authentic product and service and sort of perform that or do that with your whole selves, it feels to me like maybe there's more of a demand for that, both within our communities and beyond. But I wanted to get your feelings on that and whether you've felt that.
I agree. I think the one of the blessings of the pandemic is that it shifted so many things, because it's something that affected everyone universally. So it didn't know class or culture or anything. Like, if you got it, you got it. And I think it showed that all of these like big shiny corporations that present so well on the outside are almost hanging on by a shoestring just as much as someone would think a small business is, when in actual fact, a small business is likely to have a smaller cash flow, but like their money is less spread out. Let's say, I can't find the word. So in that case, they can survive something like that. Whereas a corporation is responsible for more people, rent, all of those different things. So I think with that, people kind of paid more attention to smaller businesses, because that's what kept everything else going. And they had that respect to see that, you know, this person that is working so hard I can relate to them on the same level, because they're probably going through whatever they're going through just like me, but are still able to get to work and provide a service or something.
Knowing that everybody is in the same situation as you is kind of, I wouldn't say it's comforting, but you get it, you know. I think also people just become used to being online now. I think they realize that this is the way to get around certain problems. You know, you've got to use Zoom, you've got to focus more on your social media. It's just become so like integral to our life now that it's just been it's second nature to most people now. You know, you go online if you want to buy something, you go online if you want to communicate with people. It's like, yeah, this is what we do now.
You know, if we move ourselves from the strategic to the very practical things, like Keisha, it's probably good to start with you on this one, because you'll probably have a different experience to Wayne. But like, I'm trying to remember the day when we said, okay, we've got to close. But I imagine there wasn't, by necessity, a huge amount of notice in which you find yourself suddenly having to shutter your business. So what, like what I just want you to almost walk me through that sort of timeline to give a sense of like how quickly things had to happen. And when you talked about some of that adaptation, just to frame it, because I think it's really impressive what you've both done, and I think it's one of the benefits of being small, right? You can be agile, but it's also not easy. But I think kind of having that timeline would be quite useful here.
I was working that evening and everyone was closing, And I think they had the announcement on the news. And then by that night, we got an email to say, as of midnight tonight, you can't go back to work. So I was just like, okay, what does this mean? And also, especially for hospitality, there was so much noise going on because people were like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to lose all my staff, all these different things, I'm gonna have to close. That didn't apply to me because I didn't have a big team like that. However, you almost got sucked into it to feel like this industry is gonna collapse. But fortunately, Makeshift let us know that they're going to support with rent straight away. So that did take that kind of edge off of it. And within a few days, I was just like, okay, I have to find a way that I can continue to cook from somewhere and make money from it. That was it for me, because I knew that part of my business wasn't taken away because I cook the food. So therefore, I was still able to utilize that part of everything.
Wayne, like how was it for you? Obviously, you're sort of not sort of serving customers at the door per se,
Right.
but your business does act as obviously as a workspace and a showroom.
Well, yeah. Basically, so when all this happened, so I would say 2 weeks before the government announced the lockdown, business stopped anyway. Like I wasn't making any money whatsoever. So I kind of like thinking, even before that, I was like thinking, okay, what am I going to do? What's going to happen? I was kind of like preparing anyway before the actual announcement of the shutdown. Okay, what do I need to do? How am I going to survive this period? But I think that one thing that was announced pretty early were the business grants to small businesses. So that gave me hope. But obviously, I didn't get it at that time, but I thought to myself, okay, this hopefully, if I can get one of these grants, it will keep me going for however long this period is where I can't, do any work, because basically I wasn't getting any work coming in, so there was nothing I could really do. So yeah, it was an uncertain time. It was scary. I didn't know what was going to happen, but there was hope on the horizon with the grant. So I knew if I could get that, then I could probably continue. Hopefully I could continue. So yeah, there wasn't much I could really do, to be honest. I was just waiting and hoping and, just seeing how things panned out. So yeah, it was a very weird time and very uncertain time. And yeah, it just came up on me and I couldn't do anything about it. It just came up on me. I couldn't do any work, and that was that. So yeah.
We're talking specifically here about COVID, but we also then have the collision of Black Lives Matter and all of the conversations that then surround us with race and equality in society. And these are conversations we have to have, with people who normally don't have these conversations with us. Mm-hmm. And it would be wrong to not kind of talk about that as well, because I think it's a huge part of the year that we've all had to come through. So I think I just want to kind of get into your experience of that, because we're talking about the collision of two huge things at what you've both said was a transition point for you anyway. I'd just like to know how you then took on that next thing and what it meant for you, whether it was something that provided a sense of inspiration, whether it was a drain, whether it was both. I just want to get a feel for that, because I think it's an important thing to acknowledge at this stage.
I'm one of these people. I take a big interest in what goes on in America anyway. So, and I've got very strong political views, and like I said, I'm one of these people who've seen a lot of these videos of Black people being shot by the police, and just the scale of the racism, obviously in America, but obviously everywhere. The George Floyd murder, it didn't really, because I've seen a lot of this stuff before anyway. So it's not that I've become desensitized to it, because I'm not. Every time I see it, it's like it's a really hard thing to take. But
okay, so
the difference is that a lot of other people, took notice. Basically, the world took notice. So it kind of like, for me, it gave me a little bit of hope that things might change, you know. Yeah, I don't know how it relates to me in terms of the business. It just opens a lot more people's eyes as to actually what's really going on. And I think that's the most important thing for me. I don't know if things will actually change from here, but I know a lot more people are taking notice. But
I think for me, when I first saw it, unfortunately, again, because we're so used to seeing it, I didn't react initially, like in any way that somebody should, because it's almost like this trauma porn. We're so used to seeing it. But as the momentum grew, it's almost like it kind of attached because everyone was having this new like PTSD at the same time. And then when it kind of transferred across to we must support Black businesses now, honestly, that the amount of new shares, I gained like ridiculous amounts of followers in days because there was this level of, I don't know, like fragility that had started to come into it. And my understanding of that now is just because that happened at a time when the world's attention was on sale and everybody was online. And this time everybody saw it outside of our culture as well. So that's why particularly, maybe, I don't know, but it gained more attraction and attention.
yeah.
So from a business perspective, it also opened up the conversation of why it's important to support our community and why are things like this happening. That's why so many Black businesses got more support and got more attention, because that was now at the forefront of the conversation in terms of what needs to happen on a community level and why and things we need to do in order to kind of counteract those systematic issues and so on. And since then, that has kind of been the case in terms of additional opportunities outside of work, in media and stuff like that, because now I guess those that hold the power, or whatever, I don't know how to phrase that, are opening up the space and deciding to share it now, which is okay. But I still take that and approach that with caution, because at the end of the day, like, our culture and our experience is, it's not a commodity, it's not a trend. And just because you pay attention this week does not mean our issues change tomorrow. So I'm still aware of that within, do you know what I mean? So I'm very careful where I say or how I feel, or it feels different or better this time, because the only difference is that different people are paying attention.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's like I've seen these movements before, and then nothing ever comes from it. So I'm kind of, but this felt a bit different. Like, it did feel different, and like you said, in terms of that conversation around supporting other Black businesses, yes, that was being brought into focus a lot more, and I think a lot more people have paid attention to that. Yeah, so I'd agree with you definitely about that. So yeah, but again, it's the people who make the decisions, you know, will they actually, you know, can we trust them to actually make the change? That's the thing.
Exactly. But what I do feel, that I think the one thing we can always take from it and the strength that we can gain from it is that ultimately, especially as a business owner, you know, you run your own thing. So irrelevant of whether they pay attention today or not, if you are focused, you know, kind of from the inside out, then that doesn't really make a difference, because, you know, imagine the amount of 16 to 25-year-olds that will watch and hear this and be empowered from this and then do something which would then support their friends or whoever. Like, that's priceless. And I think those that hold the power are aware of that and can see that. And so that's the strength we hold regardless, is really what I'm saying.
It was interesting. We were just talking before we sort of came on records about, and I think Wayne, you touched on it, about this thing of, there's those who hold the power, then there are those of us who have a business or an organization. And I get the sense that we're talking to each other more now, business to business. And we, you know, that's not, and that can open up doors. And that's something that is maybe new or is a feature of this year. Have you both found that you've made new connections and more connections and connections that take you up a level?
Yeah.
yeah, it's just opened up a lot more horizons in that respect. Yeah. But like I said before, I was always on this thing where I need to support, other Black businesses anyway. So, but I do see, yeah, there's been a lot more avenues open up in that respect. Yeah, a lot more other Black businesses coming to me and asking me to do stuff for them. So yeah, and I'm happy to do it. Always happy to do it. More the merrier. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm happy to see it.
Absolutely. I think it's a shame that it took that, but at the same time, I think it's really opened up like everybody's awareness. And I think now everybody really, really, like, it's just almost slap you in the face. Like, you just can't deny the fact that if we are supporting each other from this side, then, you're onto a win.
Now, we're talking about COVID, we're talking about BLM, this year as a whole, which I think we're all still processing. I want to get a sense of how's it shaped you, and how's it shaped your business as far as you can tell at this point. What's different today from a year ago in terms of outlook, business, everything?
It's just giving me a more of a positive attitude, to be honest, about how we can help each other, because I think there is a genuine sort of push behind all of this now. And yeah, no, it's a difficult question to answer, I think. Keisha.
I think what has taught me about myself is that that I'm able to think on my feet and be resilient and just navigate and find ways through. So that's actually given more confidence now, because I don't think it can get any worse than this. Like, we've had two really, really big situations all at the same time, and it's highly unlikely, well, hopefully not, that we ever experience this again in our lifetime. So I think it just makes you think that, okay, if I can do that, I can really do anything. And with that, I'm just even more open to taking opportunities, saying yes to stuff, trying stuff, even if it doesn't work, not really feeling too bad about it. So then next year, I'm just excited again, just to maybe try different things and diversify, even if I don't have to. Now it would be more if I want to.
I know that was a big question, so dropping that. But I just wanted to get like a sort of instinctive reaction to it. But it's encouraging to see that everyone is positive. I think survival does that. Shows that we've got something real, tangible, and of value, that we're still here working. When we think about those positives, maybe, what were the unexpected ones? Obviously, I think we all would have had a moment where it was the doomsday scenario and where we'll be in 6 months, what's going to happen. But maybe what were some of those positives that you didn't expect, and maybe we could draw that out a little bit.
One for me is it's a bit funny to say this as well, but so obviously, I'm a printer, so I print designs, logos on clothing and stuff. So obviously, with the pandemic, everybody's wearing these face masks. Okay, so it's a bit of a funny story. So one of my friends, his wife, does these eyebrow treatments, and she said, okay, basically, can you put a logo on one of these face masks, because I'm going to need this when I'm doing these treatments for clients. So I did her logo, put it on a face mask, and I put it up on Instagram. And from that day, I've just been inundated with a lot of these beauty companies, these beauty specialists following me and asked me to do face masks. And then from there, it kind of just like snowballed. So that kind of like brought in so much business, just this printing face masks, basically. So that's one of the things that kind of like, it's just the new thing where I've, it's just an opportunity that's been there, and I managed to capitalize on it. It's a bit funny saying, oh, you capitalize on like printed face masks, because it's not really a positive thing. I don't know, but yeah, it kind of works for me. So that's one of the things that has been positive for me. It's just opened up another avenue for my business. So
early especially after the George Floyd stuff first started, a food blogger that I connected with early in the year put together a list of any specific food, any people of color in food and beverage or whatever, whether they're bloggers or restaurant owners or whatever, and she featured me in it. And then she actually became a columnist for BBC Good Food. and then wrote a piece called 10 Game Changers in Food and listed me as #1, which I was so grateful for. And then literally since then, I've done so many other food related things. And it's ironic and it's unfortunate that it took something like that to happen. But at the same time, they reached out to me because of the way that I do what I do, because of how I talk about the culture and the food and stuff like that. So I was so grateful for the opportunity, but equally never expected all of the other things to come after, which is something I've always wanted to do anyway. So that was just like a blessing in disguise that wasn't expected, but also really cool, I guess.
That cultural component of what we do and so important. And I think it's what keeps people coming back around and gravitating to people like yourselves. We're nearing the part where we want to take some questions, but I've got a sort of final sort of question for the both of you. And I'm going to try and ask you to be specific. But what lesson would you give to someone starting out today? So kind of if you think about what we've learned, maybe your younger self even, but like if you could distill it to what, you know, your one key thing, someone starting out maybe in food for you, Keisha, and Wayne in the sort of design and print space, what would you tell them?
I think one important thing that I've learned is investment in your business and how you spend your money. You know, it's very important to have, especially in the print business, to have the right equipment, to have good materials. Yeah, it's very important. It's very important to have investment as well, because I was a person who started out where I didn't really have much investment at all. Okay, I basically was doing a 9-to-5 job. I got offered voluntary redundancy, which I took. I invested that money into the business. And at the beginning, I was working in my mum's spare bedroom, you know, and I didn't have that much money to spend on the right equipment. I just bought, so I had this heat press, an old Chinese heat press, a small little cutting machine, and it's very difficult to work with substandard equipment and materials, basically. So if you can invest your money well, get yourself some good equipment, good materials, and produce, you know, having good equipment is good because, you know, it's less tax on you physically. You know, there are times when I've been using my old equipment, and it's just like you realize how much of a toll it takes on you physically. So having good equipment is essential, I think. So really think about how you invest your money in the beginning, because it makes a big difference to how you continue your business. So yeah, it's very important how you invest your money.
I will say two things. If you do have access to funds, as Wayne is saying, then of course spend it well. But if you don't, especially in the food world, you kind of don't necessarily have to, because firstly, with the social media thing, I mean, there's so many chefs that aren't chefs popping up all over with a food idea. So that's the beauty of that, because once you're creative, you can definitely find a space, and you can use social media to grow an audience. And then, you know, the way that like YouTube works, for example, you can get a return for sharing your content, eventually, stuff like that. But ultimately, I would say just be authentic, because I think in a lot of spaces there is a lot of noise, and the authentic voices generally are the ones that have the most longevity, and people connect with something that is authentic, and they can relate to it and they can understand it. And I think that that will always serve you no matter what it is that you're doing, because people want to feel that it's genuine and they want to feel that it makes sense. So yeah, basically, if you don't have a lot, that's fine, just work with what you have. And secondly, just to be authentic.
That was really insightful. If I may just chuck in a lesson that I think I've learned this year, and it speaks to what both of you have done, it's that we have to keep building. I think as a community of people, we're always having to respond to different challenges, and to mobilize to meet that. And sometimes the greatest revenge, if that's the right word, but we can have is to build what we need to build and not to take our eye off that thing. And that's a difficult thing to do and to balance. But I think you're both evidence of what happens when you have the right mindset and you look to build. So thank you both.